Hi, I'm your friend Claude, here with cousin Adam. That's you.
That's me. Sorry.
And this is the debut episode of WAMCast. How did we get that name? I think right off the bat we should talk about that.
Okay.
WAM is a smashing together of our last names. I am Claude Willis. And
I am Adam Marcy.
So, Ma didn't quite have the same ring that Wham did.
Did not, no.
And technically we started out, I'm pretty sure the origin of that name started out talking about doing comic books, and we were very heavily into it at the time, and we even sort of wrote and drew our own for a short time. And you can't just throw on DC or Marvel and, you know, obviously they weren't going to see it, but you want to be a little more creative and avoid legalities wherever you can. So Wham had the ring and the impact, I think.
Yeah, and I think it kind of went along with, I always think of the old Adam West Batman series from the 60s, where when they were fighting, they would throw up a word on the screen. It'd be like pow or wham or smack or something like that. So I kind of thought that was, Wham was like a throwback to the vintage, I guess that was the golden era. I'm not really sure. But, yeah, like a vintage comic or something like that. The Wham. It sounded comic booky, if you will. So
super alliterative.
Yes.
But it's actually great, or kind of funny in a way, because not too long ago I was going through some stuff from back in that time period, and I actually found one of the ones that I had started, and it was a Batman comic book, very much based on the 60s style, and it had the big Wham logo on the cover and everything. So seems to make sense to try to honor that now.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess we should let everybody know what led us to this narcissistic endeavor.
Narcissism. What was that old wrestler that was that Lex Luger, who was like, that was his nickname or something?
Yeah, Lex Luger,
narcissist?
the narcissist,
yeah. Well, I guess like what I would say, and I'm losing your audio a little bit, so I don't hear you. I'll just ask you.
I'm getting a little weird as well.
But yeah, I didn't hear you say that. Sorry. A little difficult. Definitely Okay, there we go. I got you back.
All right.
Background noise. Okay. I'm sorry. We were talking about how we got started. I think what I would like to say about that is, we were talking just about how we got the name Wham and, our mutual interests. And, he did introduce me as cousin Adam, and, we are, we've been cousins our whole life, most of our life, actually. And, as family members, you're forced to like each other sometimes and see each other. But I think one of the things that solidified us as friends and having a lifelong friendship was our mutual interest in a lot of things. And one of those, I think we had a mutual liking for Star Wars. And when I say Star Wars, I mean the original 3-movie trilogy Star Wars.
Absolutely.
And I would say, obviously, like comic books, we were really big readers of the Wizard magazine and comic books. And, I think we realized that we liked a lot of the same things. So we've always tried to be creative. And, like you mentioned before with the comic books, we would draw and write our own to some varying degree of success, as in, did it look good, or did we, rip up the pages because we kept erasing and it looked stupid or whatever. And I think as we got a little bit older, we kind of, our creativity kind of broadened a little bit. I mean, I know you were always into art, and I was into art too as well. It kind of ties in with the comic books and everything. But I kind of thought we had some ideas for movies that were, that could have went off. And, we've had various interest in doing, writing scripts for a TV show or doing like a web series or something like that. So I think, we've just always had this interest to be in like some kind of entertainment endeavor, and I think that's what kind of kept, our mutual interest going. I think, if we can't really create something, we watch and read and experience a lot of things. I think we can talk about a lot of things, and that's just on the entertainment side of it as well.
Right.
I mean, I know we talked about before, our podcast isn't going to just be about entertainment topics. I think we're going to delve into current events and, relevant political issues, and we kind of want to give you like an everyman's perspective, so to speak. We're just random citizens, and we have our opinions, and we want you to know, what we feel about it. So That's where really my 2 cents on the subject. What do you think you want to add to that?
Well, I think it's kind of the culmination of, well, like you sort of outlined, a lifelong quest for self-expression, really, and at the end of the day. But ours certainly has taken several different forms. Yeah, we've written, or at least dabbled in writing all kinds of projects, long and short. I think I've at least made the joke once before about how we were should have been the original Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg.
Yeah.
Because they're basically the exact same age as us, wrote their first script the exact same time we started writing, and they followed it to fruition, and we did not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a way to let whatever ideas we have sort of come out as they happen instead of trying to shoehorn them into something else. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, they're rich and famous, and we're sitting here with skull caps on, and we're just talking about we haven't shaved in a month, and hey, that's it right there. So
I'm using the glow of a rusty barrel with fire in it to illuminate my face on this internet device that I took off of a little kid walking down the street because I'm poor.
Right. And this isn't even my apartment. I'm just actually squatting because I know this family's like on vacation for a week or something. That's why I keep looking around. So I'm like, whoa, they're gonna come back.
So you think you'll be down the street in another person's house next week?
Yeah. Well, I just gotta make sure the power's turned on. I gotta plug in my phone because God knows we need our phones charged because. That's a little bit of social commentary there for you as well. I'm recording this on Skype on my iPhone, so I can't really talk too much shit here. But I did mention I'm going to download the Skype on the Kindle because it's going to alleviate these carpal tunnel-like syndromes I got here holding my phone up. So
right. This is your show, sir. So shit talk away.
Yeah, shit talking. This is our show, and I can say my opinion if I want to. It might not be right, but I will tell you like it is. So yeah, I mean, I think you're, along the, current events, political issues side of things. I mean, there's definitely, at this point right now, right now as I sit here today, I kind of feel like, we're just in like a shitstorm of political controversy and social change, I think. And I know we're definitely going to have our pickings if we want to talk about some kind of social issue too, because God knows there's tons of stuff going on right now. As we record this today, I think the big thing was, we are actually establishing ties with Cuba, which is kind of a big moment in our history and stuff like that. And you can just, and of course, the tragedies of the Ferguson, Michael Brown killing, and there was Eric Garner is the other guy from Staten Island. Right. Going on right now, and this is just like prime pickings for us to talk about it. Like, how do we feel about the situation? And I know even when it comes to abusive of power, when it comes to the police, nothing quite as tragic has happened up in my neck of the woods. But it's kind of weird because just a few weeks before that, some sheriff up here got caught slapping a guy in the face because he wouldn't let him search his car or something like that.
Really?
And, yeah, it's kind of crazy, and it was like swift action was taken on that. I mean, the cop was suspended and everything, but someone was filming it in the car, and he had no probable cause to search the car. And then when the guy said no, he slapped him in the face, and it was like, who you're messing with or something like that. Okay. Don't quote me on that. People that live up here and might be listening to this, but yeah, I think even like these widespread, these topics of protests and things that are going around the country, even little things like that are happening where we live. Where you live right now, Cortland. Come on, talk about corrupt police force. We could probably talk about that for hours and hours about the ridiculousness of the city police department and whoever's there. Just making me mad already. My blood pressure is going up like 5 points. So, but yeah, that's kind of I think we're in prime position here to talk about a lot of this stuff. It's there's a lot of stuff going on.
Well, we're just the eyes and ears, but I think definitely we're in an era when, if not globally, certainly nationally, we're entering a point of no return in the sense that consequences are starting to happen, whatever form they're taking. I mean, it's just kind of a volatile natural reaction, and so you're seeing these little pockets of craziness erupt all over.
Yeah.
But you're definitely seeing them more frequently, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
And I don't think that's going to slow down anytime soon. I mean, we've been on basically a freight train for, I guess really a bullet train, you know, of I don't know, disparity, you know, with the way unchecked capitalism has been allowed to sort of just swallow everybody whole. So I think what is behind all that when you get such an unbalanced situation is, you know, you have extreme polarization of classes, which of course eventually will erupt in violence. And it's just kind of, you know, the lessons that we failed to learn time and time again from history. And here we are now, living it all over again. We're the modern Rome.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people, you know, comment on, you know, these people that, you know, they're upset with something and they riot, and you know, we don't agree with that and we don't stand by that. Is something going on there?
No, we're good. Just trying to keep the noise to a minimum.
No. Oh, yeah. Shut up, whoever's doing that.
Mic you down.
Yeah, these headphones suck. Okay. Anyway, I was saying, you know, I don't really, you know, condone violence in any way. I would probably identify as a pacifist myself, actually. But you know, at the same time, I understand because people that are put in these situations, and it's like some injustice. I mean, that's like the only way these people feel like they can be heard. You know, when something like that happens. You know, like I said, I think violent protest is not the way to go when it comes to things like this. But you know, it's understandable why it happens. You know,
right.
People just feel so helpless, like they can't do anything to be heard, when you in fact can. But you know, in the heat of the moment, in situations like that, you know, it's bound to happen, and it's unfortunate. You know, but I mean, look at how our country started. I mean, we were openly revolted, and you know,
right.
So, I mean, it's obviously the context is different because it was, you know, I live in more of a modern society with, you know, technology and whatever. So yeah, you're right. I think it's been kind of a bullet train, and there's really no stopping it now. I mean, I think it's just we're on the verge of so much change, and it's people, you know, they demand to be heard, and they're not taking no for an answer anymore. You know, so.
Well, it was Thomas Jefferson who said that every generation there should be a revolution, and we are vastly overdue at this point.
Yeah.
Because people don't really want to be, in a sense, we're our own worst enemies. Because, and I'll admit to this myself, I don't want to have to aggressively, you know, police every local politician or national politician or whoever from my district or whatever. You know, like, I guess. In terms of the way the government's set up, the ideal citizen, especially now, would just be spending 24 hours a day monitoring every facet of political activity, and it's draining, it's exhausting. And I think that you know, people want to just be able to trust whoever they vote for to do what they say they're going to do. But obviously, there was a back door in the setup of the system from the beginning, which allowed pretty much money to slowly buy off these politicians to get them to ignore whatever they're promising to do in exchange for repaying what these I don't know, corporate donors or whoever finance them, whatever they want them to do. And it's evolved into what we have today is essentially legalized bribery.
Yep.
But only if you're part of that elite class. See, if any of us peons down here tried that, they swallow us up, cart us off to privately run prisons, and make money off us again.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Like, I think a lot of these things start nonviolent, and we're supposedly allowed to peaceably assemble. But what we have a lot is you have the militarization of police, especially post 9/11, where, you know, the the military-industrial complex has gotten out of control. They just manufacture so much equipment and end up, in quotes, donating it to, police departments. And all of a sudden you got police with, everything short of, tanks and, police are having drones now. They've got, body armor and all these crazy things that you traditionally don't think of police having. So I think that seeing that kind of provokes these peaceable protests into, a heightened state. It kind of pushes them past where they need to be. And then you also have what are called agent provocateurs, which are police or government agents or whoever they're working for, disguised as the everyman, a protester, and then they're paid to go in there and stir shit up and cause people to start looting or rioting just so they have a justification to come in and crack skulls. And it's, they're getting us from both ends.
Yeah, I actually read something about that on Addicting Info. They actually caught one of those people, like you said, that was undercover supposedly and trying to incite more violence in Ferguson after the announcement there. And that's just absolutely, in my mind, how is that right? I mean, that's completely ridiculous. I mean, to get down to it, we have all this crap, tear gas and rubber bullets, and they're just sitting in this locker. We got to use these someday, dudes. Let's send some guy in there and just start saying a bunch of crap, and then hopefully these people start breaking windows and we can, beat them down,
Right.
Give me a break.
Yeah. It's just, that's been going on for, probably, honestly, since there were police, it's probably been going on since even before then. But it's certainly been, at least documented, as far back as the 60s when the original Vietnam protests were going on. And even some of that stuff, it's almost like that era is sort of coming back again.
Yeah.
Because as bad as some of the police nonsense has been lately in the last several years, I think it's still, and I'm not using what I'm about to say as a justification for that in any way, but we're still at least, it's not quite to the point of another Kent State where the National Guard just walks in and starts shooting college kids, actually killing them. But in the same hand, it doesn't seem very far off either. It's almost like they've been given instructions to kind of stop it at all costs in a way.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too. You say, these things start out as peaceful protests, and we have these so-called rights to peacefully assemble. The catch to that is that a lot of times you need a permit to peacefully assemble, or as soon as you are peacefully assembling on a street or a sidewalk or a crosswalk, you immediately get arrested for, quote unquote, disturbing the peace or, something like that. It's just, there's so many layers to this where it just gets there's so much injustice with it, and it's oh, you mean I have the right to peacefully assemble, that's a constitutional right, but I got to apply for a permit? Or to me, rights are rights. You don't vote on rights. You don't have some kind of special catch. You have to practice your rights. They're rights. That's what it comes to. It's stupid. But
it seems as if apparently it's you're only allowed to peaceably assemble on somebody's small patch of privately owned property that's far removed from the organization that they're trying to be heard by. Occupy Wall Street, were they supposed to go out to the garbage heap on Staten Island and just use megaphones or whatever, call the Goldman Sachs and yell at them that way? It's absurd. The point of peaceably assembling is to be disruptive, but not to be violent. That's the whole idea.
Yeah, and that goes along with, if you look at our civil rights era of the '60s with Martin Luther King Jr. You had the boycott of the buses. You had the Woolworth counter sit-ins where they wouldn't get up from the counter. They were trying to forcibly segregate or not, I'm sorry, not forcibly segregate, forcibly desegregate.
Right.
You know, that's the kind of stuff that, you know, yeah, you get arrested for that and great, you know, I mean, look, I mean, see, and that's the thing, like, that people don't realize is those things were effective. And look what happened, you know, after, I mean, you see, like, those images of those people getting hosed down, you know, by, you know, the firefighters and stuff, and, like, you know what, those protests and things, they worked. I mean, they marched out of Washington, it worked. Like, you can do these things, and they will work. At a point, you know, if it continues, you know, and I think with all these recent events, if we keep, you know, doing it peacefully, I mean, most of that stuff was peaceful, though, you know, It wasn't them, you know, destroying public property or private property or whatever it may be, but, you know, it'll work, so.
Right.
But, yeah, so there's a good point to hit on. Peaceful protests do it, people.
Right. Well, I mean, it's like anything else, you know. We've come to this point because in a lot of ways we've allowed for the erosion of many of our rights, you know, many of our privacies and our, you know, especially, again, in the post 9/11 world where everybody was scared shitless, so they basically wrote a national blank check to, you know, allow the government to do anything they wanted in the name of security and freedom. And, you know, anybody who even does a little bit of basic 7th grade social studies reading knows that that's the last thing you should do. You know,
right.
I guess I'm paraphrasing. I can't remember the exact quote. I want to say it's the Ben Franklin quote, but I could be wrong. But there is a famous quote that talks about how those who give up, you know, liberty in the name of security deserve neither. And
right.
That's exactly what happened, and that's exactly why we are now dealing with whatever one of our natural-born citizens has to tell us about our government from Russia, because that's how far we've allowed the state to get out of control.
Well, in kind of going alongside of that, I'm not sure if you heard about what happened today, but and it's funny because you mentioned Seth Rogen earlier, his new movie, The Interview,
right.
With the Sony studio hack, whatever group is claiming that, was also threatening violence at theaters and stuff like that, and hook, line, and sinker, all the major movie chains decided not to show the movie out of fear of some random act of violence. And, you know, as far as you know, this could be just some college kid sitting in a keyboard messing with you, you know.
Yeah.
And that's basically, you know, the whole point of terrorism is to, you know, disrupt our way of life and not feel safe, and not go out in public or go to a sporting event or go to a really tall building because you think someone's going to, you know, fly a plane into it. You know, that's the whole point of terrorism. And when you do stuff like that, you're feeding into it, and you shouldn't, you know. And I think that kind of goes along with, you know, we don't deserve security or liberty because we've given up, you know, those basic rights that we have to quote unquote feel safe, and we still don't feel safe.
Right.
So, you know, here we are, closing down a movie. They're not closing down a movie theater, so they're not showing a movie out of some random threat. You know, I mean, obviously, if you've hacked Sony Studios, you have some kind of skill, and as far as I know, it could be a group of people. You know, and I don't want to, you know, obviously draw the ire of them, but that's the point. You know, you're not supposed to feed into that kind of crap. You know, you stand up for what I mean, and you're talking about, you know, a director or a writer of a movie that has their own views and their creative mind, and they thought that this was a funny premise. And yeah, I mean, I admit it's kind of like, you know, you're going to attract the attention of someone, you know, in the movie where you're assassinating a world leader that is obviously a parallel to an actual world leader. You know, you're going to get, I mean, at least that country, you know, pissed off about it. But, you know, that's the whole point of comedy, though. I think you don't take it too seriously. I mean, as soon as you start taking it like really seriously, then there's something wrong. But
right.
But yeah, it kind of feeds into like that. That kind of is parallel to like a current event that you were just talking about. You know, with the liberty and safety. You know, like we've given it up now. Like who refuses to show a theater or a movie in a theater because of some arbitrary threat from a hacker? You know, and come on.
Right. Well, I mean, I have a two-pronged reaction, I suppose, to that particular film. I mean, when I saw it, I thought it was silly. I thought it was like, it's just like, why? Of all the things, what's the point? But it is what it is, and the other side to that is, at the end of the day, movies are art. Even, obviously it seems far removed from that with all the, the corporate control of that too. There's the big money and, focus groups and sanitizing everything to death to see what the whatever it is, 17 to 34-year-old demographic thinks of, the first through third act and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it still is art, and art is meant to be provocative. And, of course, you're going to provoke a reaction. So, mission accomplished. They really should just be standing their ground. I mean, whatever. Isn't Hollywood the land of, there's no such thing as bad press? I mean,
right. Yeah, bad press is good press. Any press is good press, I think is the saying, or something like that. But
right. Well, I got, since we were on the topic of movies, there's a couple of movie points I wouldn't mind touching on here that are sort of weighing on my mind. One of them is, of course, the new Star Wars trailer and all the reaction and analysis that goes along with that. As you mentioned in our background, is obviously Star Wars played a key role. The other one that I kind of want to get to first, just real quick, is all of the, in my opinion, I'm going to try to color my own opinion as little as I can here, but all of the hoopla and nonsense surrounding what may or may not be Ghostbusters 3, what form that may or may not take. What are your thoughts on this rumored all-female Ghostbusters movie?
Well, obviously, this isn't like an opinion on, feminism or, equality or anything like that. I think initially, that is, Ghostbusters is one of the movies that we shared a mutual interest in and is still one of my favorite movies to this day. And, I thought Ghostbusters 2, obviously, the sequel rarely is as good as the original, and in this case, but I still enjoyed Ghostbusters 2. And just being a nostalgic person that I am, I try to hold on to a lot of these things that made me happy when I was a kid, because as an adult, you start dealing with the real world and whatnot, and I kind of go back into those times like, I want to sit down and I want to watch Ghostbusters, because I remembered how awesome I thought that was when I was 10. Yeah. I mean, that came out when, that was 80, wouldn't that come out, 82?
84.
84. So, we weren't even, watching movies when that came out. But, it's one of those things I enjoyed. So I would have obviously liked to see Ghostbusters 3 to be a reuniting of the cast. Tragically, Harold Ramis died, and, we'll never be able to see the original 4 Ghostbusters together. Now, as far as my opinion of them being all women, what I like about it is that, it's not like the constant, I mean, are they going to well, my first question before I answer that, I guess, is is this like a reboot type movie, or is this just like another sequel where they know the original Ghostbusters and they were trained by them, or what? Do you know any kind of details about it besides that?
I've heard both scenarios. I think I'm pretty sure the only official pieces of news that have come out that are set in stone is that they got Paul Feig, who created Freaks and Geeks, and he was in the movie Heavyweights back in the day, Guilty Pleasure. They got him to direct it, and I think he's the one that came up with this all-female cast idea. I read that Bill Murray has given his blessing to that idea, which irritates me to no end. But at the same time, I gotta wonder if this is a man who's been badgered about Ghostbusters 3, for 25 years now, and I gotta imagine that at this point he's just worn down to just saying, oh yeah, sounds great, stop fucking asking me about it.
Yeah, right.
I couldn't blame him, but I've heard both. I believe that it would have. I think I read that it would have elements sort of that callbacks to the original 2 movies, but still sort of start everything kind of fresh and not really tie in too much.
Okay. Well, if it's a straight up reboot, that pisses me off because I'm just kind of sick of the constant like jamming down our throats of rebooted movies. Like we had to do Judge Dredd again, we had to do RoboCop again, we had to do Total Recall again. We rebooted Spider-Man 5 years after the last freaking movie was out. Like, yeah, I think the original Spider-Man sucked. I'm sorry. I think Sam Raimi screwed it up royally, okay? But still, it's annoying, you know. And I mean, there's other, like they did Red Dawn again, you know, and it's like they rebooted Star Trek. Like, how do you, like, give me a freaking break, okay? Like, I could see if you were gonna do Star Trek, like maybe do movies based on, you know, them as younger people, which is like obviously what they did because the cast is younger than you know, Shatner and all them, and that would make sense. Like do more origin stories, but not like, oh wait, actually here's Spock, and old Spock meets young Spock, and guess what? This is an alternate reality now, and blah blah blah. Like shut up. Like I don't want to hear it. So if it's a reboot of Ghostbusters, I'm going to be mad about it. If it's like a little bit of reimagining it, maybe rebooting it to start another series, and maybe you know, if like Dan Aykroyd shows up and as Ray and is like, okay, we're really old now, girls, can you take over the business for us? And they do a new line. I think I would like that better than if it was just like a reboot. But I mean, at the same time, if you film a Ghostbusters movie, you know, in modern times like right now, I mean, I guess you could play it off that, you know, even you wouldn't even have to bring him back in the movie. And I think you're right about Bill Murray. I think he's just like, he gave it his blessing because he's sick of talking about it and he doesn't want to talk about it anymore. But I think if it's a reboot completely, then I'm going to be a little bit mad about it. But I think if it's like, you know, like I said, if it's kind of like a passing of the torch type movie, I think I would like that better, just because I'm sick of reboots and, you know, basically being force-fed a rebooted movie every month. Kind of annoys me.
I think personally... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think personally, I got to come down on the side of, a pure reboot scenario is certainly the most irritating for, you know, anybody who's a real fan of, you know, the original films.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that it would be more palatable to pass the torch, to have a more gentle transition, if you will. But to me, that still kind of leaves the door open for just wild artistic license with something that is already established and that is already internationally loved for 30 years. So I think I have to ultimately come down on the side of leave it the fuck alone, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if you, I thought, you know, honestly, if you want to do new content, let's have, you know, it doesn't have to always be another movie. I mean, maybe they do like, you know, Netflix only shorts or something, or internet shorts for Funny or Die, or something along those lines, or they do a series of stuff. And test the waters that way. Maybe if they figure it out well enough through that medium, down the road a movie could be made. Obviously, none of these guys are getting any younger, but at the same time, it's just too much tinkering with something. I think that it's just too legendary at this point.
Yeah. Well, you know, I didn't realize that Leave It the Fuck Alone was one of my choices in the conversation. Because I think, I mean, when you say it like that, like I agree with that. I think, you know, it's better off just to, because even if it's not a reboot, you're right. It's just like we're taking something that's already been done and we're trying to get like a new generation of fans to like it. Like the Ghostbusters is the type of movie you don't need to like do something new to get the newer generation on board with it. Like that movie stands up to the test of time, regardless of you know who's watching. I mean, 50 years from now, a kid's gonna like that movie. And it's actually funny because you were talking about other mediums. There was a video game called Ghostbusters, and when that came out, they kind of played it off as like this is actually the third installment of the movie. And you know, I played the game briefly. It wasn't like story content that I didn't like about it. I think it was just the way the game was controlled and what you had to do. I think that's why I didn't really enjoy it that much. But it was awesome because they did all their voices. I do believe Bill Murray actually did lend his voice to his character in that. So, you're right. I mean, exploring another medium is a good option at some point too. I mean, and like onto the Star Wars topic. I mean, they've been exploring that, like with animated TV shows. They've had 2 now. You had like 3 or 4 novels a year come out. I mean, write a Ghostbusters book, maybe.
Yeah.
You don't need to visually depict anybody. You can use, the character of Egon, even though the actor that portrayed him is dead. And it's like that's a good homage to the characters they played. So
I agree.
Yeah, I'd say leave it alone too. But if I'm going to be forced to see a Ghostbusters movie, I'm okay with it if it's not going to be a reboot completely. And then being female cast to me is irrelevant at this point. I don't care either way if it's male or female. And I think they're kind of playing it off like, oh, it's an all-female cast, and they're using that as like some kind of shock value to get more publicity about it. And I think that's stupid.
Well, I agree.
That's just me.
Ultimately, I don't give a fuck either. What the gender of the cast is or whatever. But to me, it just reeks of gimmick. It reeks of it's just a trick or a stunt. To me, ultimately, what it comes down to me is any kind of stunt or gimmick is disrespectful to the property itself. And maybe that's a little too. I'm taking it too seriously. It's a movie. It's fiction. Whatever. But like I said, it's existed for 30 years for a reason. People have kept it alive and appreciated it and passed it on for a reason.
Yeah.
And I don't think resorting to stunts or gimmicks is necessary in any way to make a quality film or to do it justice. But getting to Star Wars, ironically, they kind of tie together, I feel like, because
with the stunts and gimmicks, yeah, totally.
Well, stunts and gimmicks, but also I think the attempt to just not let this die is sort of following the trend and the path that Star Wars trailblazed and laid down. Because I was talking with somebody I work with recently about the dark time, I guess. I guess between about 1985, when the last original Star Wars figure stopped being produced, until about 93, when they were kind of remastered and re-released. And
I remember that,
Then they started up, once those kind of succeeded, they started up the cash train again in 95, starting the toys, and ever since then, we're on the edge of 20 years straight right now of Star Wars figures being produced. And, we live in a time when there's no such thing as a period of dormancy anymore. There's no such thing as, like, not being able to walk into a store and not buy something with Darth Vader's face on it. And you know what? I'll take those quiet times where, it allows you to appreciate something. You missed it. You want to seek it out. Now it's just 24/7 shoved down our throats. And I think that all movies are trying to follow in that mold. And, frankly, I'm exhausted.
Well, let me add that, so anybody who's listening knows how much I love Star Wars. Star Wars is definitely one of the things I love most in life. And when I say that, I don't mean like I love it more than my wife or my kids or my family.
Some people do.
I mean, I did at one point when I just hated everybody. But Star Wars is one of the things I love most in life. And I'm talking about anything that like the original movies, and I mean there were a few things here and there that weren't the original movies that I liked. So I just want to put that out there first. And I'll actually kind of one-up you with that dormancy thing. After Return of the Jedi came out, which was 83, there wasn't really a market for anything new for Star Wars, like you were saying. It was kind of like a dark time. In 1991, an author named Timothy Zahn wrote the first authorized novel based on the Star Wars properties, which started this ridiculous output of expanded universe, they call it, with all these books and stuff. And, I'm not saying that Timothy Zahn is a bad writer, because he's not. He's a good writer. I think the Star Wars books were not even close to the quality they should have been.
Agreed.
And we can get into that that in more detail at a later time. But, I mean, I think that kicked off the expanded universe kick. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't just new books. It was like you had the vehicle guides, you had the character guides, and yes, the nerd that I was had stuff like that. So I knew what the authorized backstories were to these stories that I love so much. And, you know, all that led up to the prequel trilogy. And the way I look at it now as a fan of Star Wars, like, yeah, I'm exhausted too because I can't find anything really that lives up to the original thing. I think we have to admit as a people that nothing is ever going to live up to the original trilogy. However, I think from my, like, deep down inside of me, I almost demand this new trilogy because the prequel trilogy cannot be the last movies that were made about Star Wars. Like, they were just terrible. Right. I mean, I like some things about them, but as a whole, they were terrible. And we could use another podcast to go into things like that, to be specific. But, so yeah, what were we originally talking about? You're saying you were sick of it and you're exhausted. So, you know, I'm feeling that same way too. And along with what you're talking about with the gimmicks, it's just like, it seems like every person that touches it has to do something to make it their own. And it turns out to be stupid. And watching the trailer, the first thing I thought of was that stupid droid that's rolling around in a ball.
Exactly.
You know, he's cute and everything, great. You know, these movies should be enjoyed by the entire family, so fine. But, you know, it's just another thing like, oh, we've never seen a droid like that. So that's some, you know, brainchild of, you know, J.J. Abrams, or he's working off some concept art of Ralph McQuarrie, the original conceptual artist of the original trilogy. So maybe that was something that was tooled around with before, but, you know, we've never seen it. And we see something like that, I'm like, whatever. Like, that's just, okay, it's cute, but it's stupid. And along with that scene with the Sith person is in the woods, and he pulls out the lightsaber, and it's got that weird crossguard on it and stuff. Yeah, it's just another one of those gimmicky lightsaber tricks like they use. And it's kind of funny, like you say about gimmicks and how it insults the original thing. George Lucas did all those gimmicks in the prequel trilogy, so he basically was like insulting his own work, and like he didn't even know what he was doing almost, you know.
He is the worst offender, absolutely. He is.
Yep.
He is perhaps the ultimate narcissist in a way.
Yeah.
You know, he's somebody that. He has to be right. He has to have the last word, it seems. And I've never had a conversation with the man. I've never seen an interview where he sits down and proclaims any of this. But what I look at from him is his behavior through his work.
Yeah.
And clearly, the fact that he needed to go in and tamper with movies that were already universally, pun intended, loved, to such a degree. You know, sure, I'm on board with maybe wanting to do a couple of touch-ups, make things a little more smooth or whatever. He had some technical malfunctions on the set back in the day, and obviously, you know, technology's come a long way and whatever. But, you know, it's a slippery slope, and clearly there's nobody there to police him to say, you know, all right, George, maybe this is our line. Maybe you don't want to cross this because then it's like a stack of dominoes falling down. And ultimately, that's what it was. I think he used the special edition trilogies, their trilogy releases, to sort of play around, almost like a digital sandbox or something, to kind of test what he was going to do with the prequel trilogies.
Yeah.
And what he ended up doing was, using just about any gimmick that would be able to be conceived in some that are beyond conception, and it graduated to the point where he was so obsessed with technology that he didn't even shoot episode 2 and 3 on film. He shot them digitally, and as far as what I've read, there's no greater justification for doing that than simply because he could and he wanted to be first. And basically what that does is, because film is still to this day the highest resolution visual recording medium that we have. That's why you can go back to The Wizard of Oz, for example, from 1939 and upscale it to Blu-ray and beyond. It's going to look great in 4K. It's going to look great in 8K, whatever they come out with next. And, you could still do that with the original Star Wars trilogy. You can do that with Episode 1, but you can't do that with 2 and 3. They're confined to 1080p or whatever the limits of the medium they were shot on. And it's like shooting yourself in the foot just for this fleeting technological achievement. So it is very, very infuriating. I know I carried us off on a George Lucas tangent, but, you know, we were talking about narcissism, so I think it all ties in. I just wanted to add, too, that I'm clearly a fan, or else I wouldn't be able to speak in such obsessive detail.
Yeah, exactly.
Lest anybody think that I'm out to just bash with no rhyme or reason. But I think it's the fans who get hurt the most in these scenarios, like with the Ghostbusters and Star Wars stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think, too, we're going to be obviously the ones that are let down the most when it doesn't, chalk up to it. The one thing I can tell you, though, even though, I'm so up and down about J.J. Abrams because he's done some things that I really liked, and he's done some things that I think suck. And he wouldn't have been, like, my choice to do the movie, to reboot, or not reboot it, but to continue the franchise. But anyway, I think the one thing that I can safely say, though, is that this trilogy is going to be nowhere near as bad as the prequel trilogy. So I think as long as I keep that on my mind, then I'm not going to be too disappointed with it when I see it, because I know it's not gonna live up to the original. It's going to be awesome to see the original actors replaying their original roles. I think that'll be awesome. And from what I've seen, even though the trailer is kind of like whatever, I do like the fact that it's like original imagery. There's a lot of original sound effects. I think because he's a self-proclaimed Star Wars fan himself, so I think he kind of can get into our head and get into the seat and be like, well, if I was watching this, what would I like to see? So I think we're going to see a lot of at least iconic imagery. Not so much. I don't know. There's so many rumors about the story, and there's so many rumors about this and that. Like, I can't even get into it right now. But so I think as long as I keep that in my mind, that it'll be better than the prequel, but not as good as the original, I don't think I'll be disappointed. So I'm actually pretty excited about it. And there's a lot of stuff that on our upcoming podcast that we could talk about with just Star Wars. Let alone all these other social issues or any other entertainment form. So I think we should keep that in mind. We have a lot to talk about. So So anything else you want my opinion on about that? Because I've been thinking about it a lot and writing it down. And
I agree with you. I think it's best. I think it's easy to because the prequels are our most recent Star Wars film experience. And there was such a legendary backlash associated with them for great reason, well deserved. But I think it's easy to get sucked into just kind of staying negative in terms of all things Star Wars, and I think it's a nice opportunity to not do that, to kind of detach from that and let those be what they were, and kind of stay optimistic. I can't say that they're definitely going to be awesome. You never know. It's just when you think they couldn't get any worse, stranger things have happened or whatever. But I do think in the fans' favor in terms of this particular movie or series of movies, we have a nice insurance policy in the form of that legendary backlash against the prequels, and the fact that at least J.J. Abrams is, a fan and is interested in being respectful to the source.
Yep.
So,
we got Mark Hamill back, so.
Right. As long as they're all back and, kind of, I think this is probably going to serve as the torch passing that you mentioned in the Ghostbusters discussion.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But, if we get to see those guys again, I'm almost willing to give a lot of leeway.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think I will give it a lot of leeway. And I'm going to be, it stinks too because we're not going to get another glimpse of this until the Avengers movie comes out in May. That's what Disney announced, that the actual trailer for the movie, not the teaser, but the actual trailer is going to come out in May with Avengers. So, and actually, which is good because I really want to see the new Avengers movie. So I'm not going to just buy the ticket and walk out after the trailer like some psychos do. do that, but you're a psycho if you do that. That is an absolute waste of money. It's kind of funny because I wrote that article on my hub page about how the Batman movie from 1989 was marketed and how people would go in just to see the trailer and leave and like all those.
That's
like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, just watch the movie. Like, you got nothing better to do. I mean, you're that much of a Batman nerd. Like, you're not going home to anything better. Just stay there and watch the movie you paid for the ticket for. But hey, so that's a win-win right there. Like, I'll see the trailer and be able to stay for the movie. So I kind of lost you there. Sorry, I'm moving around. So yeah, definitely. Before we go here, we're definitely going to be talking a lot about Star Wars and a lot of things that we find to be entertaining, if you will. Any kind of entertainment like movies, shows, books, video games. I'm married now, so I don't play video games as much, but I still got my ear out there for things, and I've got kids too, so they'll be my guinea pigs.
Right.
So.
What else are they good for, anyway?
Just a bunch of money grubbers. They don't even know what's good for them. I love them, though. Okay.
So now that's recorded for posterity, and there's no way to claim otherwise.
Shit. You better edit that out now. I'm just kidding. I joke about everything, so I'm rarely serious. If you can tell I'm serious, because I'll say I'm serious before I say something. That's about it.
I am serious.
Yeah, completely. So, anything, I got to actually get going here in a few minutes. Anything you want to add about any upcoming podcasts? When do you think we should expect the next one, our friend Claude?
Well, I'm not entirely, I don't know, we're kind of getting our feet wet here, so, I mean, ideally, at least weekly. So, hopefully, a week from today, or not sure whether we'll do it on Wednesdays or Sundays, and at least try to have it uploaded by the following Monday. We're just feeling it out. Hopefully, we'll get a feel for our flow and work out our plans and keep it from being too terribly boring.
Yeah, we're rarely boring, so I don't. We'll talk about something somebody likes at one point, I mean, you see all these like political rants and stuff on TV, so I mean, we don't want to get into that. I think we should just kind of keep it to something that's relevant, and share our opinion about it and how we feel about it. And I think I can keep it interesting. We're pretty interesting fellas. So.
Yeah, I'm too schizophrenic or whatever the term is to devote any huge chunk of time to any one topic anymore. Anyway, I'm kind of all over the map, and that's what happens when you throw shit at the wall. There's a little piece of corn in there for everybody.
That's gross.
Maybe we'll call this the Throwing Shit podcast.
Kernel in my shit.
All right. Well, on that note, I suppose.
Actually, I'm not down with that. We're not going to do that. WAMCast is fine for now.
All fine.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call it quits then for now.
Well, I guess.
Anything else you want to chat about real quick?
No, I think we'll stop there and kind of evaluate our performance.
Awesome. Yeah, it's past my bedtime anyway, so.
All right.
Someone's waiting at the door to come in here, so.
I see that pumpkin forming.
Well, until next time then, that was our debut, getting our feet wet of WAMCast. That would be Season 1, Episode 1, December 17th, 2014.
Right.
Yeah, I don't even know what year it is.
Still 2014 for just a little bit longer.
Doggy.
Almost done with it.
Where'd that year go by? Holy crap.
All right, well, on that note, I am your friend Claude.
And I am the cousin Adam.
And this has been WAMCast.
Thanks for listening.